Welcome to Social Aloe Ministries, where we are committed to glorifying God while exposing the devil. It is a beautiful thing when you know something is a match made in heaven. When the Lord reveals to you that someone is the spouse that He ordained for you. And you meet the person, and that person has the same revelation too, that you are meant for each other. However, if you're in a situation where you feel as if the Lord told you that someone is your God-ordained spouse, but when you approach a person, that person has zero interest in you, take it as a sign that whatever you heard and who you thought you heard it from, that it came from the wrong source. In 2 Corinthians 11, verse 14, it tells us that the devil masquerades as an angel of light. And there are times when he has deceived many people into thinking that someone is their God-ordained spouse. In some cases, people wait around for years, waiting for the other person to, in a sense, get the same news. And it doesn't happen. And even if the one who's waiting, if their God-ordained spouse shows up, he or she won't even believe it, won't even look at it, because the devil has him or her fixated on the wrong person. In some cases, the person thinks that if I just try a little bit harder, if the person gets to know me, he or she will like me. But it wasn't of the Lord. And the longer it takes a person to wake up and realize that the enemy had deceived them, it's basically the worst it's going to get. Please, the enemy is very deceptive. One of the ways that you know that something is of the Lord and from the Lord is based on its fruit. So if you believe that the Lord told you that someone is the person that He ordained as your spouse, and you approach a person, and the closer you're trying to get is the further that person's trying to get, that person is not the one for you. And also, if you think the Lord said that someone is your God-ordained spouse, and you can't put it in the Lord's hands for Him to bring the two of you together, that is not of the Lord. In the story of creation, in Genesis 2, the Lord said it was not good for the man to be alone. So He created Eve. And because He wanted them to be together, He brought them together. Isaac and Rebekah. Rebekah lived with Bethuel, her father, Laban, her brother. But Abraham sent his servant to go find a wife for his son Isaac. And he told the servant that the Lord was going to be with him to ensure his success. And that is how we end up bringing Rebekah back to Isaac. The Lord was with them. The story of Ruth and Boaz. They didn't just simply meet in a field. Ruth was married to Naomi's son, Mahlon. But how did they get married? Well, in Ruth chapter 1, you see that there was a famine in Bethlehem, Judah. And that famine drove Naomi and her husband to Moab. And they had sons, Mahlon and Chilion. Mahlon married Ruth. Chilion married Orpah. Naomi's husband died, and her sons also died. Naomi heard that things had gotten better in Bethlehem, Judah, so she was about to return. Her daughters-in-law were going to return with her. Well, she told them to turn back because basically she wouldn't be able to provide for them. She wouldn't be able to find a husband for them. Orpah, she turned around, went back to Moab. Ruth, she refused to leave. She told her that her people Naomi's people would be her people, and Naomi's God would be her God. That is how she ended up in Boaz's field. When she went back with Naomi, because for whatever reason, she knew that something in Naomi was linked to her destiny. So she went back to Bethlehem, Judah with Naomi. And it wasn't easy. There was suffering, which was why she had to go glean from Boaz's field. But because of the things that she had done to Naomi, Boaz had heard about her, so her reputation had preceded her. The Lord had highlighted Ruth to Boaz in his own special way. He didn't come out and say, that's going to be your wife. But Boaz recognized that Ruth was a virtuous woman, and he took care of her. And then Naomi saw the potential for a relationship between them, and that's how they were brought together. And even the story of Esther, how she ended up marrying King Ahasuerus, Xerxes. Esther, whose name was Hadassah, her parents died. Her uncle Mordecai took care of her. They went in exile. They're in Persia, Media. King Ahasuerus had a queen, Vashti. Beautiful woman. He sent for Vashti, so in a sense he could parade her. Women, I know women don't usually want to feel like eye candy, so to speak. But that was a part of Vashti's duty. The queen refused to appear in front of the king. When the king asked what should be done, she was put into exile. She was replaced. And they actually said to replace her with someone better than her. They looked for all the women or eligible women in the land, put those women through beauty treatments for a year before they could appear before the king. A year. And out of all those women, King Xerxes, King Ahasuerus, chose Esther. Why? Because the Lord had positioned her for a moment such as this, a time such as this. When the Lord wants people together, He will bring them together in His time. And when He brings them together, there will be love. In part, because God is love.